In this video, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of the nation's capital, the seat of the federal government, and the home of many meetings of world leaders and diplomats affecting policy across the globe. That's right, we're talking about the indomitable electric city, Washington, DC. And if you're thinking about making a move to the Washington, DC area, then this video is definitely for you. Let's get right into it. So I'm a positive person, so let's jump into the pros first. And these are in no particular order. But the first pro is the architecture. The architecture is absolutely amazing. All the architecture is based on the founding era, which is the Greek and colonial revival. It never gets old driving into the city, across the bridges, and seeing the Washington Monument, the White House, the Capitol building right in front of you, and all of the beautiful architecture in L'Enfant City. Number two is the sightseeing. There's definitely no shortage of anything to see here. There's over 160 museums, 60 some plus monuments. There's tons of activities for children, historical activities for children and history buffs and art lovers, and 95% of all of these activities and things to see are free and subsidized by the federal government. Number three, there is suburban life in the city. You do not have to step outside the city to get the feeling of a neighborhood feel with streets that have a beautiful tree-lined view, neighborhoods with parks and playgrounds. You'll see people out walking their dogs and families out at the playgrounds enjoying afternoons or evenings. And due to the strict building restrictions to protect the nation's interest and iconic institutions like L'Enfant City, DC feels more human scaled without the wind tunnels of towering buildings that other cities have. In my experience, I have never been to another city that's as diverse as DC, except for maybe New York City. And the people here are generally really friendly, helpful, and genuine. Due to DC being such a transient area, people are coming over here from all over the country for politics, for different administrations, for military, for tech companies, in addition to across the world, because we have the World Bank here, and of course we have Embassy Row with all of the embassies that are lined up. Embassy Row actually has a festival in May. It's a month-long festival. It's called Passport to DC, and the first two Saturdays of the month of May are open houses, so people can come and actually get tours of these embassies. Speaking of events, any major tour or event will land in DC. Whether it's an art exhibit, a concert, a theater performance, they always come to Washington, DC. There are festivals every single season in DC. You've got the National Cherry Blossom Festival in the spring. You've got the Pride Festival in the summer. You've got the H Street Festival. You've got the Jazz Festival. You've got Passport to DC that I mentioned as well. And of course, the National Tree Lighting Ceremony in December. There's always something to do in DC. And for those hiking enthusiasts or people that want to get away and go skiing, we've got mountains. We've got the Appalachian Mountains. You easily get to Shenandoah or Front Royal, the Shenandoah River. There's tons of things to do, whether it's winter, whatever season it is. Massanutten and Wintergreen are great ski resorts, like literally 2 hours from the city. And you also have Harper's Ferry as well, where people can go camping, hiking. For me, this one is a pro, but some may think this is a con. However, we have 4 distinct seasons. We have beautiful autumn leaves in the fall and gorgeous blooming flowers in the spring. Summer can get hot here, extremely hot and humid, and with humidity comes insects. However, in recent years, I have to be honest, it's been very mild. There were lots of gorgeous days this past summer, and the winter has been extremely mild as well. Now, this one might be one of my favorites on the list, and it's the boating community. So we've got the Potomac River that separates DC from Arlington. You'll often find boats docked at the Georgetown waterfront that come in for lunch, they hang out, taking in the gorgeous skylines of Washington, DC and Roslyn, and then going back out onto the water to get a dip, hanging out at the Three Sisters. And taking in the skyline from this perspective is definitely a must-see. Now, if you don't have a friend with a boat, you can rent a speedboat. You can go on a yacht. There are yacht parties, there are yacht festivals, there are Sunday brunches with bottomless mimosas. There's definitely no shortage of activities on the water. In addition, you've got kayaking, canoeing, paddleboarding. All of these activities are easy to access at one of the marinas, either in Georgetown or down by the tidal basin. And the last pro, but not the least, is it's safe to buy real estate in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. and parts of Northern Virginia like Arlington, Old Town Alexandria, parts of McLean, parts of Vienna did not get touched in the bubble. And that is something that we can be proud of, that the economy here has always been strong. My name's Allison. I'm a native of the area and a local realtor in the DC and the surrounding suburbs. And we get calls all the time for people making a move into the DC metro area. And if you want to know anything and everything about living in DC and the greater Washington DC area, give us a call, shoot us a text, whether you're making the move in 9 days or 90 days, and we'd be happy to help you make that smooth move into the DC area. Okay, so let's get into the cons. Housing is expensive. If you're coming from anywhere besides LA, New York, or Boston, be willing to sacrifice and be flexible. If you're moving to any of the DC proper neighborhoods like DuPont, Calorama, Shaw, Penn Quarter, Logan Circle, or Georgetown, be prepared to spend about $600,000 on decent living space. And when I'm talking about a decent living space, I'm talking about a 2-bedroom condo that's not in the basement and that was built in this century. Now, if a high-rise or mid-rise is your jam, that's totally cool because there's tons of those. But be careful because that condo fee will get you. When you're looking at the sales price, you're gonna wanna look at the condo fees too, because if you're in a mid-rise or you're in a high-rise, there are other things that you have to pay for with that condo fee because there are elevators, there are pools, there are gyms, there are amenities, there are staff, and those cost money, and guess who pays for it? The condo association, which are the owners, right? So the number 2 con, traffic is horrendous. I think it tops the charts at like number 2 or 3 in the nation. If you live in Woodley Park, which is in Northwest, and you want to go to southwest of the Capitol, like to Eastern Market, you're looking at about a 45-minute to 1-hour commute during rush hour times. I can get to those places from Virginia faster. Rush hour is the coin term for when the traffic is at its heaviest. So in the morning times, that commute is between 6:30 and 9:30. Those are the official times. But it begins before that and it ends after that. But those are the official times. And in the evening, it's from 4:30 to 7 p.m. During those times, DC will shut down major highways. They're only going northbound or only going southbound. Similarly, some of the major access streets will have 3 lanes going in one direction. And yes, there is signage for this. It's super small that displays the times that the roads are going in these directions, but you'll be too busy avoiding a head-on collision than to be able to pay attention to the signage. And it's really small type too. Traffic is the lightest on Fridays, especially in the summertime, because that's when everybody goes home or they're on vacation or in their vacation home. So if you have the opportunity to pick your schedule, I would suggest trying to keep your schedule somewhere between 7 and 3 p.m. to avoid the mess. I remember when I used to work in DC and I had to commute every day during the regular rush hour times, I had a small baby. So to pick up the baby, my baby was in daycare in the building that I was in, so I would have to drive home with the baby. That was not fun. To be in gridlock traffic the whole way home, stop and go. And then on the way out of town, get a ticket on K Street. Provide Twitter updates and live updates on their website and on the radio station at 103.5, and that's on FM. It's WTOP. They provide live traffic updates, any accidents that happen, closures. It also includes metro closures, bus downs. So if you have a car, parking is ridiculous. If I'm going out in DC, and I live across the river in Virginia, I can get to where I'm going downtown and arrive at the destination 15 minutes faster than if I drove into DC and had to find parking. There are all sorts of restrictions and there's signs and they're not the same. There's 1-hour parking, 2-hour parking, 3-hour parking, so at certain days as well. There are zones. There are multiple different zones in DC. So if you live in DC, you're gonna wanna get a permit to park in whatever zone that you live in because parking is hard to come by. A parking spot in DC can run you anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000. I'm hesitant to say this, but Sundays are probably like the days that you can be at ease when it comes to parking because a lot of the restrictions are kind of off on Sundays, and maybe the parking police are off as well. The DC automated speed enforcement is out to get you, and there are cameras all over the city. So if it's not properly displayed, 25 miles per hour is the speed limit. Now, this program nets about $150 million or more annually in automated speed enforcement. Not a real cop, a camera, okay? And 99.9% of those tickets come from a speed trap on a freeway on a portion of K Street heading out of the city into Virginia, okay? So this freeway is right under Washington Circle where there are no pedestrians, there's no cross traffic, and the speed limit is, interestingly, 25 miles per hour going down a hill. I get 3 tickets a year from this speed trap. You would think that I would remember that this speed trap is there, but I am so excited to get onto a freeway heading out of the city that I forget about that camera most of the times. The number 5 con is that there's no representation. There's no representation in Congress. Yes, you still have to pay DC taxes if you're a resident. However, you do not have anyone to represent you. This is because DC is a territory and it's not a state, and territories do not get representatives in Congress. Actually, I think that there is one non-voting representative in Congress, but what can they really do anyway? They have no vote. So I don't know if this is con number 5 or con number 6, but taxes in DC are higher. The income tax is 4% to 9 3/4. And you are taxed if you make $10,000 all the way up to $1 million. And the more that you make in DC, the more that you are taxed. So if you make $1 million and up in DC, you're taxed about 10%, which is why a lot of the senators and people in Congress, they don't live in DC. They live in McLean, they live in Arlington, or they live in Potomac, Maryland, Bethesda, or Chevy Chase, Maryland. So that was the income tax. Real estate taxes, there is a transfer tax that both buyer and seller pay. So if you're purchasing a property that costs $399,000 or below, you are taxed at a transfer tax rate of 1.1. If you're purchasing a property that is $400,000 and up, you're taxed at a rate of 1.45%. To put that into perspective, if you're buying real estate in Virginia, for example, you also are taxed, but you're taxed at $3.50 per $1,000 of the sales price. So if you're buying a home that's $500,000 in Virginia, you're taxed at that $3.50 per thousand. So your transfer tax that both buyer and seller pay is $1,750. In DC, your transfer tax that both buyer and seller pay is $7,250. So that's all I got for you for the pros and the cons. I'm sure there's a lot more out there, but I try to touch on things that maybe other people didn't touch on. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. That'll help the algorithm to push this out to more people that would be interested in knowing the pros and cons of DC. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to check out the new videos I post every week. Thanks for tuning in.